space around him. Tierney playing with his marker. Marcus Rashford might need some help. He gets it from Fernandes, who skins it. Salah. He's put one in. It's Silva. Oh, what a finish from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Hello, football fanatics, and welcome to the Real Talk FC. To our subscribers, welcome back to the channel. To anyone new watching this video, this football channel is for any football fans, regardless of who you support, whether you support Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Real Betis, Everton, Wycombe FC. This football channel is for you. If there's anything that you want to discuss, get in contact with us, pop us a message down below, get in contact with us on our social media. The links will be in the description, and let us know what you want to talk about, and you're welcome to come onto the channel and we can have a discussion. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk rather than giving our opinion about different football matters and players, we're going to give a little bit of facts about coaching. So we all love sitting on our couch and telling Frank Lampard and Jurgen Klopp and whoever else that, oh, you should be playing this person on the right wing, blah, blah, blah. Today we have somebody with us, a friend, who's taken his steps towards becoming a qualified coach. And we're going to have a chat with him about where he started in football, why he's made the decision to go in the coaching, to go down the coaching route, and how he went down the coaching route, and how you watching this video can follow the same path or a similar path. So before we get into it, Clyde, welcome back to the video. How are you doing?
Yeah, awesome, man. Joint top. But
Yeah,
let's see how the rest of the season goes.
the amount of flack Man United fans have gotten for that joint top comment, I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, and Chris, for the first time, mate, welcome to the Real Talk FC. Pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Pleasure to be here. Also, I did notice when you were naming teams that people support, you did leave out Leeds, but we'll get back to that at a later stage. But nice to be here. Thanks very much.
For the length of this video, I'm just going to keep quiet and ignore that comment.
Hence
Okay,
why I made it.
so Chris, without wasting any more time, let's get into this. Tell us about your start in football. When did you get introduced to the beautiful game, and how did your passion start?
Okay, so I grew up in Switzerland, and they organized football for juniors is very organized. So every little village has its own club. So for me, you go to school with the same kids that you play football with at the club. So it was more or less all of my schoolmates went to football. I ended up going to football. And from there on, that love just grew. I mean, you know how it is with football. You can't really explain it, but it's something that grabs you. And from that junior club, I then evolved. I managed to get into youth academies. I worked my way up in Switzerland, and I was lucky enough to work under some top junior coaches and really get that experience of high-level coaching where I actually learned a hell of a lot. And then come to South Africa, I carried on playing football at an amateur level. I then decided, you know what, I am getting to that age where playing football is going to eventually become an issue. And then I decided I don't want to be, as you say, just sitting at home telling Frank Lampard who to play and whatnot. I want to take action and actually contribute to it. Another thing that I have noticed in South Africa, and this is actually the main point that brought me to coaching, is the lack of grassroots education in South Africa. Just as a quick example, if I can give you an example, for us, when I was 7, 8 years old, passing a ball, receiving a ball, all of those things had been taught to me before that. So I had already absorbed that stuff. So for me, that was second nature. So when I got to the age, so I currently coach a bunch of under 10s. I can see massive differences in levels between, like, I need to coach my under 10s how to control a ball, how to pass a ball. So I can't even work on decisions making yet with them because I'm still trying to get the basics right. Whereas with us, especially in Europe as a whole, because the whole grassroots level is much more developed and organized, the basics are taught to you at a very young age when you're actually supposed to be learning it. Whereas then once the child gets to 10, 11 years old, you can now start working on decision making, on tactical stuff. Obviously not hard tactics, but where to move, your body positioning when receiving a ball, things like that, that just went missing here in South Africa, I feel. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to get in, to start giving back and to educate the kids at an earlier age than they are being educated.
Okay, Chris, just for the clarity of anyone watching this video, let's do some name dropping. So you sort of mentioned that your football base started in Europe. Can you give us more details? Which country, which clubs, which academies were you involved in during your youth?
So I started, I grew up, I was born and raised in Switzerland. So I started in my village club, which was not worth mentioning. It's just a small little local club. From there, I then went, this was at age 11, I moved to a team, FC Wiel. So they are currently in the second division of Swiss football. They were in the first division when I joined them. I was in their youth ranks. And from there onwards, then at 13 years old, I switched into the FC Basel Academy. For those of you who watch Champions League football, or well, Europa League football more likely now, they are regular representatives in there. So I went into that youth academy. I was there up until 15, and we then decided to move to South Africa. So that's my education in football that I had over there. And then I came to South Africa, where I joined a club called Juventus Durban North. It's an amateur club. I did train with Tanda Royal Zulu for half a season. They are a NFD, well, I don't know if they still are, but they used to be an NFD team. I did train with them for a bit. And then when I moved to Cape Town, or to Joburg first in 2015, that is when I actually stopped playing club football. From there onwards, it was then just five-a-sides, socials, those sorts of things. So that is more or less my background in football, playing. Then coaching is when I came to Cape Town, when I wanted to get into coaching, I contacted SAFA, the South African Football Association, and to find out how it went, how it goes with registration and what licenses I need to do first and how the whole process works. And I was lucky enough to get a space on the SAFA D license. So that's level D. It's the lowest license of SAFA. And you can do that in whichever province you're in. There's regional offices of SAFA in all the different provinces. So if you want to get into that, contact your SAFA office. Please be aware that they might be slow in getting back. And that's where and that is one of the reasons. So let me just jump ahead. I do have my SAFA D license. I've also got my UEFA C license. The reason I ended up diverting and going the UEFA route is because SAFA was going nowhere. So just the SAFA license, it was 3 days. It was 3.5 days. It was 2 Fridays and 2 Saturdays. There was nothing about coaching. We were in a classroom for 90% of the time. I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember half the stuff that I learned there because it was not significant in the slightest. Another problem we have is that the South African Football Association, it is very, I'm going to use the word selfish. So when I went for the SAFA, the UEFA license, it was done in Lesotho, so in Africa. The reason it was done in Lesotho is because the guy who did it, he approached SAFA and told them, I want to bring the Scottish FA and UEFA down here to educate South African coaches. And SAFA said, no, we don't want to have anything to do with UEFA. We are CAF, that's the African Confederation of Football. They are proud members of CAF and they want to have nothing to do with UEFA. However, funny enough, if you have a look at all the top PSL coaches, like your nomadic traveler Ernst Mittendorp, not one of them has their CAF license. All of them have their UEFA licenses. So you can see the discrepancy there between South Africa not wanting to educate young and up-and-coming coaches with the UEFA license but at the top level, they're only accepting people with UEFA license. So you can see the whole system doesn't fit together, which is why have a look at the PSL. The managers, they are just rotating. 1 week they're at Peter Maritzburg, next week they're at Celtic, 2 weeks later they're at Chiefs. That's the reason behind that. And that's where I got put off massively and decided to go the UEFA route. So what I did was I got in touch with the guy from South Africa who organized it. And what I currently have is my Scottish FA C license in conjunction with UEFA. So your C license, because it's still the lowest level of licenses, you do it through a specific European FA, but it's signed off by UEFA. The moment you go one step up, it then becomes a license that you do under UEFA, signed off by that specific FA, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Chris, just a quick question for you. Sorry, wait. Before I give my question, Clyde, do you have any questions for Chris about what he's spoken about so far?
Yeah, sure. So, based on your current coaching badges and the level of qualification you had, if you were looking for a job at the moment, what is the highest level you could be employed at any football club right now?
So at the moment, with my C license that I have, I can coach amateur football, any age group, and I can coach any age group of youth, amateur youth. So I will explain a little bit more what I mean by amateur youth. So that's my license that I have at the moment.
Chris, let's do this. Can you give us a little bit of guidance in terms of what was that like? When you did your C license, your UEFA Scottish FA related C license? What was that process like? What did you do during the training? Where did you do the training? And what did you learn when you did that license?
So we went to Lesotho. It was an academy up there that they have. It was actually set up by the British royal family. It's Kick for Hope, I believe that foundation is called. It's Prince Harry who set that up, and we went there. There was an artificial pitch. We had youngsters from that academy to work with, to use on the training field to do our drills. We had two coaches from Scotland who are with the Scottish FA, who are coach educators. They came down to run through this whole thing with us. So we were there for about 10 days. And now remember, the C license it's junior football. So we work on what we did specifically the junior part of it. You can manage adults as long as it's amateur. So you can do 11-a-side. What we focused on was how to set up a proper training session. So what do you want to do? How you want? So when you want to set up a proper training session, first things first, you need to pick a theme that you are going to work at in any given training session. By theme, I mean passing, control, finishing. Can be defending, it can be attacking. So those are you pick a theme that you're going to work on. Then you need to set up your training session. First, you start with a warm-up. So obviously you will have a warm-up pertaining to the field, to the topic that you are working on today. So if it's passing, your warm-up will be something passing related. You then go into a drill. A drill is with cones, no opposition. So you're working on the basics, on automating the movements of that drill. You then go into a conditioned drill where it's still in the shape of a drill. So it's not a game situation yet. It's a drill, but you now start bringing in opposition. So a defender. What we were told to do is when you bring in a defender into these conditioned drills, it's not a defender at maximum capacity. All that defender is trying to do is to be a bit of an obstruction. So just to put the player doing the drill under some sort of pressure, because otherwise they're doing it with no pressure at all. There's no intensity. And so then you work on that conditioned drill. And once you do that, you go into a conditioned game. A conditioned game will again be, you then play a full game, a normal game, but you put conditions in it. So take, for instance, we're working on passing. Our aim is passing. one of the drills that I love to do is on a full field. Sorry, I don't actually have my tactics board with me, but just picture this: you have your thirds on the field. You've got your attacking third, your center, your middle third, and your defending third. You play a normal game, but you assign your two defenders are in the defending third, your midfielders in the middle third, your one striker up front. A drill that I like to do is you got to play out the back and go through every third. And say you've got two defenders and two midfielders. If one of the defender passes it into the middle third to the two midfielders, he or she can join. And that is another thing that we were taught as well quite extensively. What our aim is when we're coaching is success. So when we say we're working on passing, we want the kids or whoever you're coaching to have as much success in passing during that session. So we do that by getting as many touches on the ball as you possibly can. So ideally, you want to have a ball, if possible, for every player. Otherwise, a ball between two players. So we want to get as many touches. And that's why also I said before, you don't want to have aggressive and tight opposition, because then it takes away the chance of success. So again, you want them to have success under a bit of pressure, which then also creates a mindset of, you know what, I can actually do this under pressure. Which then when a player goes into the game, he doesn't get lost when he gets the ball and there's actually someone putting him under pressure.
Okay, so how do I become, my question to you now, and I think the one that everyone wants to know is, how do I become Jose Mourinho? How do I become Sir Alex Ferguson, Jurgen Klopp? So once we move on from the C license, what is the next step? How do you move on? How many licenses do you have to pass? What is the time span on those licenses?
So if you want to become a Jose Mourinho or Alex Ferguson, if you want to become Jose, start complaining about everything for starters. But from the C license onwards, the next step is your UEFA B. So I did my C license in 2019. On my card, the expiry date is 2022. So for your C license, you've got 3 years to do your B license. To do your B license, naturally you need your C license. You then apply through the Scottish FA. You book yourself a spot on that, and you then go. Same with the A, same with the Pro. So you got UEFA B, UEFA A, UEFA Pro. So when you go for the UEFA B, it is still in essence, it's a continuation of the C license. So you're still working with youngsters. You will be allowed to coach youth, but the difference is now you can actually coach youth they call them excellence academies, up until under 16. So that means me, for instance, I could now once I have my UEFA B, I could go to the Man United Youth Academy and coach anything up until they're under 16s. Now, with the B license as well, the material that they go on, they focus, now with the C, it was basics and your training drills. Now with the UEFA B, you're working on functions of players. So what function does a striker have? What function does a centre back have? What function does your left wing have? What function does your left wing have when we're going forward? What functions does your left wing have when we're going back? So it goes into a bit more detail of the players. It also goes into the phases of play. So your defending phase, your transition phase, and the game that is focused on is the 8v8. So we're not even working on 11v11 yet. It's still 8v8. Okay? When we go to the UEFA A license, there you can now coach at a youth level at academies of excellence up until under 18, and you can work in professional football, but not in top tier. That means you can coach in the Championship or Serie B or Bundesliga 2 or whatever you want to call it. Also, you can take over a caretaker interim manager job for a maximum of 12 weeks in a top flight division. So if you're not qualified, you can take over as a caretaker, but just for 12 weeks, in which time you either need to do the qualification, which is not enough time, or the club will have to find someone else. Also now, when we go look at the UEFA A, you're looking at phases of play, but more in detail. You're moving on to 9v9 and 11v11. Now you're looking at the actual full field game in a tactical sense, in a setting up the training sessions type of sense. And then the last one is a UEFA Pro. And there the focus of that license is purely on managing. When you get to the UEFA Pro, it is assumed that you know how to set up a training session, how to tactically educate your players. It now focuses on management. And by management, they take recovery of players, nutrition, media training, transfer training, how to deal with sponsorships, how to deal with stakeholders in your club. That's where it then teaches you how to be a Ferguson or a Mourinho. That's where you then get the managerial aspect. So up until UEFA A, we're looking at coaching, whereas UEFA Pro, we're then looking at management. And if you want to coach in the Champions League or the UEFA Europa League, you need your UEFA Pro license.
Okay, so Chris, so we're running out of time. So there's two more parts of this conversation that we want to get through. The first one is Clyde. Any other questions for Chris on the coaching aspect, on the badges, anything like that?
Well, just a quick one, okay? Especially at the beginning, I know, Chris, you mentioned things about the gaps between what you experience in Switzerland and what you're seeing here in South Africa and so on. Okay?
Yes.
Now I know, like, if you look at the academies which are constantly successful, you immediately think of like La Masia or Ajax and so on, okay? And they have specific philosophies or specific fundamentals that they stick to, right? So let's say, for example, you were given a task in South Africa to begin your own academy, head it up. What is the, let's say, 3 or 4 fundamental aspects that you look at and you think those are non-negotiables? This is the aspects that we need to focus on to have continued success.
Yeah.
So the fundamentals, I would say, if I wanted to set up an academy, is the philosophy of the academy. So for starters, I would have the same philosophy all the way from the small ones right up until open age group or the oldest age group. There needs to be the same style that we play, the same training methods that we use. And it's the grassroots level. We need to start from a young age educating these kids towards football, but also towards life. You can gain a lot from sports that you can use in your life. And I feel that's something that goes missing. So for me, that is something that I would definitely incorporate into my academy as well. And then obviously the coaches that work at my academy as well. I don't just want a dad who doesn't know the first thing about football. I want educated coaches, because too often I see the wrong things being taught and it carries on into adulthood, and by then it's too late to change it. So the right processes in terms of coaching, in terms of coaching recruitment needs to be done. And then I don't see a reason why South Africa can't actually prosper in terms of football. It's just they actually need to put in the infrastructures and the grassroots structures to blossom.
Okay, and then
sure.
The final question, Chris, that I have for you is, if you could isolate 2 characteristics of a top football manager that you've sort of picked up from doing your licenses so far, what would those 2 characteristics be that you'd say are critical to making it as not necessarily a UEFA level manager, but even being able to help youngsters at the youth level? What do you think the 2 main characteristics are?
The first one is man management. How do you deal with your players? You can't use a blanket approach with all the players. Different players react to different approaches. So the one guy, if he's making mistakes, I might be able to be a bit harder on him because he can handle it. Whereas someone else, you need to take a bit of a different approach. So man management is definitely one of the big things. And then readiness. Too often, and this might seem very basic, but it'll make a huge difference. I see coaches who rock up 5 minutes before the training session, setting up stuff while training is going on. Be prepared. For me, when I prepare my sessions, I sit down the evening before. I take an hour and a half. I sit with my tactics board. I pick a theme. I set it out exactly what I want. I get to the ground an hour early, and when my players arrive, everything is set up, and not just the first drill, but all the drills. So I don't need to be setting up and wasting time during my session. And that's another thing, especially in amateur football, time. Chances are you have an hour and a half twice a week with your players. You don't want to be wasting time on unnecessary stuff. So for me, those are the two most important things.
Cool. Perfect. And on that note, to our football fanatics that watch our videos, I hope this was useful. Chris, we will be popping your Twitter username into the description of this video. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to
Not at all.
invite people to communicate with you if they'd like to get into coaching.
At least I'll get some followers.
Yeah, maybe you can point them in the right direction about which website to go to, who to get in contact with.
Just quickly, the academy that I'm coaching at, the guy who runs that academy is the guy who organized the Scottish FA to come down here. So I work with the guy on a weekly basis. I can refer. I can get you in touch. So 100%.
Yeah, so perfect. So if you're watching the video and you'd like to make those first steps into getting into coaching and being a qualified coach, not just sitting on your couch like me, telling Frank Lampard that he's wasted 50 million on Timo Werner, leave a comment below, get in contact with Chris. And thank you so much for watching. Clyde, Chris, thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always having you on.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers, Jens.
Goodbye, everyone. Cheers.
Guys.